Hello everybody, my name is Christian Swenson. I do videos here on YouTube about autism, autistic consciousness, and life on the autism spectrum. Today I wanted to do a video about tension. Tension. That feeling. It's not even a feeling, it's something your muscles do. It's muscle tension. It's the feeling we get when our shoulders are doing this and we can't quite get them to stop, when our hands are clenched, especially when our toes are raised. We're walking on our toes. That's the thing autistic people do. Maybe you're walking and you don't really swing your arms that well. There's not so much loosey-goosey, more, I don't know, righty-tighty, I guess. And there's this feeling like my body is holding on and it won't let go. It can't let go. And that is rather uncomfortable, even painful, but it's also just discouraging, because I think there's a big part of us that would really like to just loosey-goosey, and we can't really sometimes. Wanted to go into that, wanted to really explore why that can often be the case. I know it's also true that some autistic people are rather too loose, but I'll kind of explain, in my opinion, why that can often be part of the same dynamic, and maybe offer some useful tools to maybe get us towards a more loosey-goosey place. Really wanted to point out at the beginning here that the body, the human body in general, neurotypical, autistic, whatever, is always in kind of a rhythm or a dance between contraction and, you might say, expansion, right? This feeling of, oh, we're going to contract. This is what we are when we're in a fight or flight space. We are defending against the world. We're not showing our soft underbelly to the world as much. So we're kind of defending against it. What does this look like? Look like a cat. When they're scared by a dog or something, they're like this. And well, I think when our shoulders are tense, I feel we're kind of like a cat all the time, with hunched over shoulders and an arched back. We kind of get used to that. So to be clear, there is often, if not always, a large amount of fear in people on the autism spectrum, an indiscriminate fear. In other words, a fear that isn't directed at anything in particular. Now, why wouldn't it be directed at anything in particular? Well, if we're autistic, there's a good chance that there's a few reasons. There's a good chance that we are inundated, overwhelmed by sensory information all the time, which makes us feel attacked by just the world. Another reason is that we keep making social mistakes. We keep making errors. We keep making lapses in judgment that we can't help. And so we grow to just defend, to be paranoid as a natural response. So we kind of do this, we're like, oh, what's going to happen now? But not with that pleasant attitude, but more with a really defensive, scared attitude. We grow to look for threat, not necessarily everywhere, but potentially anywhere. And that can be very scary. Added to this is often the feeling that can be often true, that neurotypical people don't believe us when we say that we don't understand, when we say that I didn't see that coming, when we say that, oh, I couldn't have predicted that, or I didn't know that. And they say, of course you did. Everybody knows that. Well, I mean, it's their intuition, but it's not yours. It's their perception, it's their instinct, but it's not yours, and that makes us feel gaslit. Gaslighting is to get a person to distrust their own judgment, to distrust their own world, and in many ways to be autistic is to be gaslit just by people who have different worlds than you, assuming that your world is their world. You're just bad at it. But it's not true if you're autistic. But as a result of that, we grow kind of tense. We grow, we learn to kind of defend against the world. But I would wager there's probably another reason we're tense in our muscles, and it's that a certain degree of tension is good and normal. You know, you need to exert tension to do stuff, you know? That's what we do. We tense muscles and then we relax them. But I would wager that often we're so disconnected from our bodies as autistic people that sometimes we tense and we don't know when to let go. I don't know if you've ever seen the episode of House where, you know, he has the amputated hand or whatever that has the phantom limb pain, you know, where it's just tight in his kind of bodily representation of the hand that isn't there, and it won't let go, and he's just had this chronic phantom pain for decades. And House does this brilliant thing, which actually works. It was devised by a neuroscientist named with the last name Ramachandran. I don't remember his first name, but what he does is he has his remaining hand in a box, and then there's a mirror, and he blocks the hand off, and he just shows him the reflection of what the hand would have been, and then he tells him to relax it, to tighten his existing hand, and then let it go, and then watch as the reflection does the same thing, and then the phantom pain disappears. Right? In other words, because he didn't have the visual sensory feedback to the phantom hand, it just kind of kept on a train of tension. And it makes me wonder if autistic people are kind of the same way, because we aren't that in tune with our bodies. It's not like we have amputations, or maybe some of us do, but that doesn't have anything to do with our autism. But because we're so out of tune with our bodies, the tension just decides to keep going, like the phantom limb. The tension just increases. It goes in one direction, and it never relaxes. It never gets the message that, okay, this is enough. Maybe because it's never really found what it's looking for. You know, an amputated hand can't find what it's looking for, and so it just keeps going. Maybe we don't really have an idea of what we're looking for. Maybe we don't know what it would feel like if we were to find what we're looking for through the tension. Maybe we aren't attuned enough to feel like, oh, this is enough tension, and then dial it back. And so those are really the two reasons I would suspect that autistic people can have a lot of muscle tension. The first is just fear, and the second is, when do we know when to stop, because of our maybe lack of embodiment. But I wanted to maybe give you some suggestions as to what to do about this. And the first thing to know is that tension, like I said, isn't bad. Tension is important, and there's a rhythm in the human body between tension and relaxation. Righty-tighty, loosey-goosey, right? And one of the things you learn in meditation, certain types of meditation, is that one of the ways to relax muscles is to tighten them even more. Now that sounds a bit weird. It sounds a bit like a paradox, and it is. But let me walk you through it. So if your muscles are tense like this, you want to do this and hold them to kind of do a few things, I would say. The first is to kind of give the part of you that feels like it needs to do this some affirmation, right? Give you a part of yourself that feels like it needs to do this some feeling like, yeah, your perception is right, partially. I am going to affirm the part of you that feels like it's terrified. I'm going to comfort that part of you. And what happens when we're comforted? Oftentimes we relax. But if we try to forcefully relax the shoulders at first, it's like, no, I need to comfort. I need to defend, so I'm going to do this even more. You're kind of taking me away from what I think I need to be doing. So first you go like this, saying, yes, you are able to tense up. You are able to contract, but look, you're also able to relax. And then we can maybe do it again. You're able to tense up. Yes, that's something you have permission to do, but now you're able to relax. You have permission to do both. You have the ability to do both. And of course, you can do this with all sorts of different parts of your body. It's called a progressive muscle relaxation, you know. And this is something you can really experiment with. Another thing that is really important is that because we are so kind of tense all the time, at least some of us, we can tend to lose the awareness of certain aspects of sensory input, right? because we're so defensive, we start to lose certain tracks, certain places where there can be new sensory input. And so one of the ways to relax is to kind of stimulate those different parts. There are lots of beautiful videos on YouTube about this. One of them that I really, really admire is a channel by a woman named Suki Baxter. She just does the most amazing videos about relaxation and healing the body from trauma and from anxiety. And I think a lot of them would apply to autism. And one of them she suggests is just to literally just massage this part of your ear and then maybe massage this part of your ear on either side, because, well, first of all, it's connected to our vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the part of your body that really regulates between fight or flight and relaxation, rest and digest. You know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And this is what, if you can do this quickly, if you can have the permission to do this and the permission to do this, your vagus nerve is well toned. And I would wager that for many autistic people, our vagus nerve is not well toned. It is kind of not well exercised. But doing things like this will help you, attune yourself to your vagus nerve and then here's another thing you can do. I did this in a video a while back, is to just hold your, and you should probably do this at first while you're lying down, is to kind of do this with your hands and then to use your eyes without moving your head and just look like this for 30 seconds or so, and then do it on the other side eventually. Eventually you'll have some kind of a sigh or a yawn or a swallow, which also has to do with the vagus nerve. And you can do that, and there are other things you can do too, right? This is a technique that I heard from, a lot of these ideas are coming from a guy named Peter Levine, who you should look up. This is, I'm trying not to get the mic, but this thing right here you can do is to just, let me try this instead, is to just put one hand under the other armpit and put the other hand over the other shoulder. This will give your body the feeling of being a container. This will give your body the feeling of being surrounded and embraced in a positive way. And you'll do this, and then you'll relax, and you'll go loosey-goosey. And then maybe you want to tense up again because you're scared, because you don't want to be loosey-goosey all the time, and you shouldn't want to be loosey-goosey all the time. Another thing that really helps with this is, I've mentioned this in another video, is hot and cold showers. So maybe you will get in a shower bath, right, where you have half of it filled up, or a third of it, or a quarter of it filled up with cold water, and then you fill up the rest of it while you're lying in it with a hot shower. And the combination of the hot shower and the cold bath kind of gives you a feeling of, oh, that's too much cold, so I'm going to feel the shower more. Oh, that's relief. That's too much heat, so I'm going to sink back into the bath. Oh, that's relief. And so it's tension, and then, oh, relief. Tension, oh, relief. And that's what that really, that's what that's really, really good for. And then there are lots of other things you can do too. One of my favorite metaphors I like to give to my class is what I call the Zazen parable. I do it for you, but it would be rather, it would take a setting shift, and I don't know if I'm set up to do that. What it is I do Zazen, which is a type of Zen meditation, and what you sit in full lotus pose. And if you know anything about full lotus pose, it's where you sit cross-legged, but your ankles are above your knees. And if you're not used to that, and if you're not too flexible, it can hurt quite a lot. And Westerners often will complain about that aspect of Zazen, but in a way that's the point. Because when you're doing it, you get the feeling like, oh, I just feel so tense in my legs. I just feel so, it just hurts so much. I wish I could just relax it. And then all of a sudden you find out that, ooh, your legs have just relaxed. And I mean, you haven't undone the pose, but you're like, oh, that's really nice. That's what peace feels like. And you realize that you had forgotten what peace feels like because you hadn't relaxed. And the reason you relaxed just now is precisely because you had exaggerated the regular muscle tension in your legs to a breaking point, because tension isn't just just it isn't just a defense. It's also exerting energy, and it can drain energy, and it can hurt. And so when we go like this and we do this, it's releasing pain. Um, Another aspect that I should mention is that oftentimes emotions are stored in muscle tension, and so don't be surprised if you find when you do things like this that there are emotions that start to come up that are uncomfortable. That can happen, and maybe just be cautious with that. Be cautious and kind to yourself, and do it slowly. You know, there's this concept in Peter Levine's Somatic Experiencing, the guy I'm getting a lot of this from. He calls it titration, which is you just want to do the tiniest bit at a time, like in chemistry, tiniest bit of exposure to these to the pain and in the tension, and then, you know, like this. He calls this thing, the contraction expansion. He calls that pendulation. It's a word he came up with. Yeah, and as far as autistic people maybe being looser than normal people sometimes, I know for a fact that many autistic people have very loose joints. You know, they're able to do lots of weird things with their joints. But I would wager that that's kind of part of the same thing with what I've been talking about, because you can either be too tense or not tense enough. You haven't really gotten to the balance and that rhythm, and maybe some people fall on one side and some people fall on the other side, but we really just want to navigate ourselves towards a kind of a dynamic balance point. I just want you to feel good, because if we're feeling a lot of tension, we often don't feel good. So yeah, like, subscribe, click the bell. There's a lot of you who have been doing that. I had like 100 subscribers in just a few days, or maybe that's an exaggeration, but it seems to be going in that direction. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I'm mostly recovered from my illness, which is really great. I just did a lot of burping yesterday, which is good. It was good, and lost like 10 pounds just because I wasn't eating during the sickness. So I'm gonna work on that. And take care, everybody, and I'll see you on Saturday.